Welcome to today's Explainer. I am absolutely thrilled you're here. Today, we're diving into a truly fascinating cinematic script called The Story of Song Bir Lula. We'll be unpacking how this powerful narrative uses art, history, and education to explore a society teetering right on the edge. Whether you know the cultural history inside out, or you just love a brilliantly structured story, we're going to break down the core themes step by step. So, let's jump right into the heart of the film.
Okay, let's dive into this. Section 1, A Crisis of Culture.
To really grasp what's happening to this society, we have to look at a pretty stark contrast. On one side, you've got this once vibrant tradition, the music, the poetry, bustling markets, that shared identity that completely defined the culture. But then, contrast that with the flicker of foreign films. The script explicitly shows how these foreign voices are literally drowning out Somali songs, slowly eroding values and spreading harmful customs. You see people in a makeshift cinema just staring blankly, caught in this paralyzing space between fascination and the total loss of their cultural heartbeat. It's unsettling, right? And it builds into a much wider societal breakdown.
You see that cultural decay? It isn't just isolated to the cinema. It bleeds directly out into the streets. The script hits us with a montage of a nation just buckling under the weight of political, social, and economic burdens. We're talking tense faces at political rallies, restless young men just idling in alleyways, and kids in classrooms with broken chalkboards, whispering instead of actually learning. But the real tragedy here, it's the fading of love and unity. Neighbors are walking right past each other without even a nod. Families are eating their meals in dead silence. Even a wedding procession goes by without a single song. The cultural foundation hasn't just cracked, it's crumbling.
And that brings us to what I think is the script's most powerful, haunting central metaphor. Imagine a rope stretched incredibly taut across the screen, fraying dangerously right in the middle. The script tells us that the fibers are trembling, alive yet so fragile, warning us that a total fracture is practically inescapable. The line is alive. It's an absolutely brilliant visual of a society stretched to its absolute breaking point, literally dangling on the brink of collapse.
So how on earth does a society step back from that brink? Well, that brings us to Section 2, The Song of Bir Lula.
The beating heart of this entire script is actually based on a famously powerful song, and the genius behind that song is the late legendary Somali poet Muhammad Ibrahim, widely and affectionately known as Hadrawi. His words really provide the emotional architecture for the whole story. I mean, without his profound verses, the script's major themes of loss and longing simply wouldn't pack the same punch. He's the anchor here.
Now, what's really interesting about this is how the script uses Hadrawi's actual poetry to evoke this deep, almost painful sense of nostalgia. The lines translate to, "Didn't I go to Beledweyn in the good times?" You see, the poet isn't just remembering a place on a map, he's remembering a feeling. He's recalling a time when the land was green, when the rivers flowed freely, and when communities were thriving in a sort of golden age. This profound longing for the city of Beledweyn completely grounds the viewer in exactly what's been lost in the present day.
But the poetry doesn't stop at just the landscape. It carries a deeply personal heartbreak, too. The poet speaks of a girl named Bir Lula, and the imagery is just stunning. Was there not a queen there like golden water? The script brilliantly intertwines this unrequited, agonizing love for Bir Lula with the broader narrative. It's like the poet's personal heartbreak, his feeling of being left behind while everyone else moved forward, perfectly mirrors the entire nation's collective sense of loss and isolation. The personal becomes political, and the political, well, it becomes deeply personal.
We wrap up this exploration of the poetry with a beautiful, honestly desperate prayer. Oh God, make Beledweyn a home of prosperity. The poet is praying for the safety of Bir Lula and the flourishing of his beloved city. It's a massive plea for restoration. And in the context of our script, it provides the exact emotional fuel needed to inspire the characters and really the nation itself to start repairing that fraying rope we talked about earlier.
And that dramatic pivot takes us right into Section 3, Revolution through Art.
The date flashes before us, October 21st, 1970. Dawn is breaking over Mogadishu. The Indian Ocean is glimmering outside, but inside the presidential palace, the atmosphere is austere and incredibly tense. Mogadishu stands at the absolute center of power right now, and the nation is poised right between its old traditions and a massive, impending transformation.
The script takes us right inside the chamber of the Supreme Council of the Revolution. Now, looking neutrally at the historical events depicted here, we see a really fascinating strategy unfold. The council isn't just relying on military might, Instead, they're organizing a massive, large-scale awareness campaign. And look at who they're deploying to do it. Students, teachers, poets, and singers. They viewed art and education not just as hobbies or weekend entertainment, but as vital, powerful instruments for nationwide mobilization.
So the crucial point is captured perfectly in the stated mandate from the leader of the council, to turn the hearts of the tribes into hearts dedicated to the revolution. The strategy here was to merge these artists and educators together and disperse them all across the regions of the country. Reporting objectively on the script's narrative, we're seeing a government attempting to actively reshape a nation's political identity by leveraging the very cultural artifacts, like the poetry and songs that we were just talking about. The revolution, at least in this scene, literally begins with words and art.
This massive mobilization effort guides us right into Section 4, Classrooms of Dagak's Tour.
And this brilliantly illustrates the sheer scale of the educational effort we see in the film. The script takes us through this incredibly vivid montage of high school classrooms. We see teachers sketching out pulleys in physics, pointing to maps of Africa and history, mixing bubbling beakers in chemistry, and reciting vocabulary in English and Italian. It's an incredibly diverse curriculum, literally a massive mobilization of knowledge happening simultaneously, all under one roof.
But the thing is, these aren't just isolated subjects. While the classrooms might be divided by walls, they're completely united by a singular, overarching purpose. The narrator in the script beautifully describes each subject, whether that's geography, religion, or mathematics, as a single thread. And together, they're weaving this unified fabric of knowledge. The act of learning is directly linked to the sheer survival of the nation, preparing the youth for a future way beyond those classroom walls.
Which brings our entire narrative full circle. The script resolves its opening crisis not with a massive battle, but with a gathering. Out in a village square, an elder begins to sing an old Somali poem. Slowly, tentatively, others start to join in. Pretty soon, drums, dance, and laughter are filling the air. The cultural art and solidarity we've been tracking this whole time finally act as that much-needed healing force. And remember that terrifying image of the fraying rope? Well, the camera lifts to reveal the people united, and the rope is now whole again, just glowing against the horizon.
We've really seen how the story of Songbir Lula weaves poetry, political mobilization, and education into a literal roadmap for survival. So it leaves us with this final provocative thought to chew on. Can a fractured society truly be healed by reclaiming its cultural art and shared identity? Think about your own culture for a second, your own community. What are the threads holding your society's rope together? Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer today, and as always, keep learning.